secrets unlocking the low-code data transformation. The page down. Next month, our meeting is March 10th from 12 to 1:30. We're still getting a confirmation for a speaker. What?
Super sure.
He said he saw it. Huh?
No,
Oh, yeah.
When you shared.
Yeah, I'm on Teams and I said share. It's not letting me share. Doug, do you want to make me a? Okay. Now I'll share. All right. Okay, can you see me? He doesn't see you yet. Well, I told. Okay, we'll start again. So here's information about Chris's lecture for today. Oops. So I don't hear me. Okay. The March meeting is March 10th, and we are still trying to get confirmation for the speaker. Future events, these are Data Saturdays and SQL Saturdays, and SQL Saturdays getting rebranded, but these are one-day mini conferences or larger conferences, items of education in the area on different topics. And then here's all the information that's been on the website about Chris's presentation and his background. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so Chris, you can share now.
Okay. Okay, so bear with me. I had AI help make this presentation itself. I haven't practiced it, so we'll see if it goes 90 minutes. But a little bit about myself. So my name is Chris Cusumano. Right now I'm a BI architect at QuickBase, which is a software as a service company based out of Boston. I started in analytics, that says 2018. Honestly, I don't even know where AI got that from, but I really kind of got in 2016, really into Excel, Power Query, Power Pivot, which then I discovered Power BI in 2018. I guess I've always said I was lucky that I discovered it early, and I've loved it ever since. And because I learned it in the real world on my own, because I was an airline company or an airline ground handler that was all Excel based. So everything was Power Query. I didn't have access to the database or to SQL or their SQL server to really work with anything on like transformations upstream. And this is about kind of some of the tricks and learnings I've had over the years. It will be heavy demo. But the good thing is you don't need to remember any of this because it is in GitHub. I will post every example and every, so I'm hoping you can just take whether they're functions or whether they're little queries to use for your own, because I promise you there will be at least a couple you will use when you leave here. They're some of my favorite things I do on every query because, again, it will help you not fail a refresh more particularly. So with that, also, if I will say this at the end, but if you just remember, be smarter with data, that phrase, it's just github.com/be smarter with data. Yeah. So Power Query secrets, unlocking low-code data transformation. This applies in general to Power BI, Dataflows, and Excel, or just anywhere you use Power Query. Okay. So as an agenda, I will cover a journey through Power Query mastery. See, I mean, AI does a good job. They made this website for me. So I will go over just like the foundation on how it can help everybody, because you don't always have access to make your upstream, like, because everybody knows, oh, it's best practice to make your changes in the database or as high as upstream as you can, and that's not always realistic. I will then go over some performance optimizations or just best practices to speed up refreshes, and then some cool ways to use parameters that anyone can use and really kind of change all your queries at once by using a parameter. Then I'll go over briefly on why data types matter and little tricks that, like when adding custom columns, to not need a secondary step that has it. Then best practice or some practice for debugging, like the little things in Power Query to help you show where there are errors. You will hate this is duplicates versus references on the difference between the two styles of when you are referencing or copying a query. You'll hate duplicates by the end of this. I promise you, I will have a lot of scenarios where duplicates in Power Query are very different than duplicates in Power BI. And I will show you the different ways you can handle that creatively, hopefully. The one thing I think you'll probably 100% take away is the error handling. I will show two ways to where you can make it to where it doesn't matter what columns are renamed, what columns are added. If someone completely removes your source, I will show you a way to make it impossible to fail. Now, you could argue that would mean the data won't be there, but let's say it's a piece of your query that you don't need for the rest to complete, or you just want certain protections. This will show a way to where it will continue all your steps without ever missing, I can't find that column, I can't find that table. So then just the different table operations, just merge, append, and if you're used to SQL, I will show why it's very nice in table or in Power Query, why it's much more efficient, or maybe not efficient, but much simpler to do merge, append, anything compared to joins in SQL. Then custom functions. And then I did data intelligence, meaning don't do a date table in DAX. It's much easier to I did this last night, to ask AI for just give me a date table and then expand it from there. So feel free to ask questions as we go. And forgive if I'm going to try to recreate these demos live, because I think that'll be easier to see, but I do have them done. I just think that if the steps are already all there, it'll be harder to see what I did. But if I fail and have to go back to the one I already made, again, so every source that I'm about to show with the demos is all through GitHub public, so you could download this model and also refresh it. It's just a forked repo of some thing that had like hundreds of CSV files. But I will routinely say you can apply this to a SQL database. You can apply this anywhere. So with that. So I don't think Power BI would be anywhere what it is today without Power Query. I think that Power Query unlocks anybody to automate data, to automate Excel, to automate Power or data into Power BI. But I think that the magic of Power BI is Power Query, because it allows anyone who doesn't have access to the source data, but maybe just wants to start with Excel and then bring in other Excels. And anyone can do it because it's all step by step. And I will show ways where it doesn't have to be step by step, especially if you're used to DAX or SQL. I will go over a way where you don't have to look at it like it's step by step, which you can get real creative with that. So, and especially because you can't always put it upstream. You can't put it in, or it doesn't make sense. You might have a date table where one person, you have the core of it in SQL or the core of it in a database, but you might need a special column just for your model that you need to add that doesn't make sense to put it into your core SQL table, or 20 different scenarios. You know, that's a bigger question of when should it be upstream versus not, but there's a lot of scenarios where it either can't be upstream or it doesn't make sense to be. And with requirements changing constantly, it's also a great way to test data real quick. I don't think I need to explain why Power Query is magical, but otherwise you wouldn't be here, but I suggest it. If you haven't used Power Query much, it is amazing to just try new things and very easy in today's world. So performance optimization. So I'm trying to think, should I do a demo? Yeah, I'll give you a demo in the beginning. So first of all, I'm gonna go into this demo because I will say that right away that you really do, just for best performance, I'm gonna copy one of these and we're gonna start with Thanksgiving dinner. Duplicate, right, turn around down here. So I'm just gonna go over some best practices that I think here, performance. So imagining that you don't have access to changes in the source. One tip I always give someone is that if you're going to remove columns, I would always suggest to remove other columns. So, and the reason for that, so if you're not used to this, you can always right click and you can hit remove, and there it is. There's the step. It's asking me to remove this column, and it's asking me to remove this column, and it will just add to the list, etc. But that causes a problem with that is if your source is like a SharePoint file or something that you don't necessarily control, if you have other steps down the line that maybe pivot your data or do something where the columns really matter, it could introduce new columns that you don't want or that mess up your queries later because you chose to remove specific columns instead of just saying, I just want to keep the ones that I need. And all that does is just says remove whatever. Because when you're trying to formulate a query or the most efficient way, because your whole goal should be it won't fail a refresh. Plus the data's right. We'll go with that. But you really only want to call the columns that you need. You want to try to call the least amount of columns because then it's less likely to fail if the source changes. So when you're removing specific columns, new columns can come into play. All sorts of things can happen versus I highly suggest remove other columns because then it's saying, okay, every other step can only use the columns that I've started, that I chose in the beginning. So the next quick performance thing is if you need to filter your data right away, I would suggest filtering it at the highest level you can. And that's just straight up performance in the sense that, let's say this was connected to a SQL server. There's what's called query folding, where you can do certain, if you're connected directly to SQL or other databases, there's sometimes it can send the query straight to the source to where it calls less stuff in the beginning, and filter works with it, renaming columns. There's certain steps that allow that to go to the source, and there's certain that don't. Excel does not apply here, but the whole point of is I would filter your data as soon as possible because then every follow-up step only has to work with that specific set of data. So you're not doing steps on data that you didn't need to have. It's better for memory, it's better for refresh speed, etc. That's another quick tip. Remove unnecessary one. So for disable query load when not needed, I call that out I would highly suggest if you're not used to going into the steps for Power BI, I would, or the settings, I would suggest everybody when they first go Power BI on any new computer to go to File, About, and Options and Settings, go to Options, and never allow background data previews to download in the background. That is a major performance hit for tables that you're not even trying to look out at the time. And as your model gets big, you will wonder why your stuff is loading slower, or if you're in Power Query, why the table is taking a long time when it's trying to load every table potentially in the background when you never needed to look at it. So the first thing you could argue with me for all these other settings, but this one I never see as valuable. So settings, options and settings, global is data low is never allow data previews to download in the background. And it's very easy to, the preview is still here for everything I have. It just loads when I need it, or I can hit refresh preview. So that was that. I would also suggest another just general query performance or to help prevent errors is this already came in with my data types, but I would suggest to set, or actually it came everything in, this is just a Thanksgiving dinner. I would suggest everything to do your change types as early as possible. I wouldn't, so when you first add a column, any column, add custom, and I just do this. Power Query never naturally adds a type typically in that add custom. You could, this is just a tip, you could do change type right here, change type text, or what I actually suggest is you can always just add a comma and then type text or type whatever it is, which then makes your queries more efficient. It maybe not efficient, but easier to read because you don't have a lot of step after step after step. That's another quick tip. And just for, this isn't for performance, and forgive me if I'm jumping all over the place. I will get more focused as we get into demos. But another just quick tip is if you have, there's two ways to, like everyone suggests, or rephrase, I would always suggest to build this as if you're about to give it to somebody else. It's very easy to make an entire model where you know how it works, but if you try to give that to someone else, or 6 months later you go back to it and think, why did I do this remove duplicate step? I would suggest notes or renaming the steps to make sense for anybody. And there's two ways to write notes. One, you can always rename right here. You put, added blank column. But for notes, like on what this does, you can do it two ways. You can right click on it and hit properties and then add description. I added a blank column. And most of these demos won't have notes in there. Just as an FYI, I didn't do that for this. I wanted to show it. And then it'll be right here. You hover over it. And all that is the equivalent to where I hope you guys are going to get used to Advanced Editor by the end of today, because it will show some real value if you get a little bit used to it. But that's the same thing as just typing / twice and then whatever note you want before the step. So because if I put it up here, or I put it after, actually, if I had another step and I put it after, it would accidentally go to the added blank column or whatever. That is not just for others, that's for yourself. AI is great for this. Just pop it in, Advanced Editor, literally say, can you make notes, the best notes you can think of? I only want notes, do not change the actual query. And then you can always just paste this right back on to make sure it worked.
You can also do that on the formula itself.
Oh, that is a good point. Yes. You can add it in here and then I think backslash. This is cool. You're right. And Yep. Went green. Sorry, that. I think the green or the backwards is right. There we go. Yeah. Maybe because I already had yeah, it added it after, but it would have been in there. Or it would have been in when you looked here. In there. Okay. Thank you. That's another way of doing it in the actual custom column or whatever it may be.
I'm just a lazy developer. I like
Yeah.
right
yeah.
here,
Yep.
and then it'll still show up and get back to
Yeah.
there.
That's a good point. Now I wonder, I'm going to take out mine because the only issue I see there is because it adds it after, because I don't know if it will put it. There, friend. Do that. I'm not going to focus on that on what I did wrong there, but
Oh, no, I'm not
Yeah.
saying you didn't.
no, but that is I didn't even think about that, putting it actually in the custom column. But let's say it's not a column, you could do it anywhere. You could also probably, I believe you could put it in here in the actual thing up here, as long as it's the backslash twice or forward slash. It'll go green. Yeah, forward slash. Boom. It's in the advanced editor. Okay. Okay. So with that, I'm gonna jump into some cool demo. Yeah. So multiple merges. This is just common sense. Loading massive tables. I wouldn't, or I would do the remove other columns right away, because then all follow-up steps are not going to be there. I say use table buffer strategically. I will get into what that is, but effectively Power Query is lazy. So what it does is it tries to get everything it can into memory right away, to then do steps based on that memory. Sometimes it's a good thing to force it into memory if you have a lot of other steps later, or like you reference this query many times. Let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a SQL table that you are developing on, or you bring it in a SQL table and then you reference it 7 times. You could take that initial pull and then do table buffer, where you just add it as the step, as the last step for the whole table. And then it will allow every follow-up step to not touch the SQL server. So as you're editing it, you can make, or as you're editing other steps down line, you can make it to where it won't keep hitting the SQL server. Now, that immediately turns off query folding. So in the sense that I don't deal with a lot of SQL Server, especially when I was first learning Power Query. So query folding, I didn't care about. But if you do, that does immediately stop it after that step. But it does, if you have a lot of steps that take a while through SQL or through your source, you can get the core of it to go into your computer's memory or the Vertipack engine's memory with table buffer. And how to do that is, let's say I had all these steps, or let's pick one. Oh, I don't want to show that yet. I'll just do this. I'm going to change I'm going to remove other columns. I'm going to transform lowercase, transform length. Okay, there we go. I got this. But now I want this in, I want to reference this query where I right click and I can hit, oh, where's reference query? On,
I usually do that just on the query itself, all of that.
yes. Okay, yes. So let's say I made a small, or I made a query that does the core steps. We're going to call this base. And now I'm going to do 100 other steps on this. But you could add in advanced editor, you could put where you go to the end and then you add a comma. You could put table dot buffer. put in the previous step. Remind me what I'm doing wrong here.
While you're doing this, I do want to mention one thing. I'm really glad you're using the folders to organize things because a lot of people don't.
Oh, that was another thing I was going to call out. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm hiding some of this stuff, but this folders are also fantastic for yourself, for other people. You can go folder within folder within folder. I'm going to quickly, just to show AI, I'm going to quickly show why it can help so much. We're going to go to Claude. I'm going to say new chat. I need to add a table buffer on this, and you add it at the end. I forgot what to do, and that's okay. I really just want, there it is. I forgot I needed to name
So
it.
this lets you document what you're doing as you're doing it.
Say that one more time.
If you were writing documentation for the thing you
Yes.
designed, all these notes you're putting in there are part of your documentation.
Yeah. And meaning I could go in here and I could write any notes I want on all this. Removed columns. Why did I remove it? I want to put it before actually. Yeah.
General question to that. The DMVs, I know they look at all the, they can look at the DAX and stuff like that. Can they look at the description that you put in here? In one of the steps that you put in,
That's a good question. I don't know that answer.
we can get that out somehow, because downstream. The data governance would be really helpful in how it
That's
works.
a good question. Yeah. I don't know. If it can pull in the query based, but I'm already 30 minutes in. I'm going to speed up. See, I thought I was going to be way behind. All to say, all that did, and I just use AI just to say, I can't remember the actual function, where this is now it's forcing Power Query to put in memory after this step. So this step, put in the entire table into memory. Now every follow-up query won't touch SQL because you're just, or whatever the source is. And sometimes that can be efficient if you are referencing the same query 20 times. I wouldn't suggest that, but if you were, even if it's not SQL, it's going to keep trying to pull it each time. So this will pull it once and then just start from there. That is a good source for that. So, okay, now I'm going to jump into parameters. So parameters, I want you to imagine that I have college majors and recent grads, and this is all data on there. And let's pretend I have I made 3 branches, a dev, test, and prod branch. Imagine it as a SQL server. You have dev, test, and prod. If I wanted to, right now, in these unchanged files, if I wanted, and as a background, here's dev. I'm connected to dev right now, and I'm connected to this repo, Be Smarter with Data. If this was a SQL Server data warehouse and Be Smarter was dev warehouse and the database was called dev, every time, if I had 20 queries looking at this, if I wanted to switch this to test or prod, I'd have to change every single query. Anytime you have something that I wish I could change all of my steps that reference this same thing, doesn't have to be the source. I'm going to show you a different way where I don't care about what the source is, but it's very cool with parameters how you can just make a new parameter. Let's say so in this case, I know that if I need to change the branch and maybe in Snowflake or SQL Server, you look at the source and it says database or whatever. I know right here that I just need to change dev to test to get to that branch. So once you find out what needs to change one time, then you can add a new parameter, and you could go ignore these for a moment because they're part of this nest. And we're going to call this branch 1. And I'm going to put required, and I want it text because this is text. And then maybe I want a list of values because I know there's 3. So I can put dev test prod. I can put a default of dev because it's already at dev just because I'm used to it. And then the current value is dev. Because now, and then I'm going to come here and I'm going to be like, okay, how do I make this reference this query? Well, this is all a text, and you'll be able to tell based on what yours is on the source. But so I just kind of need to go, if this was all a quotation mark right here, then I can just stop the quotation mark right there. And I can add and then I just need to reference and take out dev because that's the one I'm about to switch. And I just need to do branch 1. And then I'm gonna add another and then get the quotation marks back. Because now, 1, it would have already failed if it failed. Because now it's looking at whatever this text format is. Right now it's dev. I could switch this to test and it will still work. And then let's pretend I also needed this. I actually have a secondary, so I'm a new parameter and I want a repo changed, or in this case, your whole warehouse. Same thing, text, list of values, whatever they're called. It could be a number. It could be anything that is used in that source. So in this case, it's be smarter with data. And then it's Chris 1614. Got the exact same. Or it's 164. You know what? We're going to find out. And it's the same concept. So there it is. I chose that. I go here. And I do the same thing. You could play around with it. If I accidentally did this, it's going to fail because I just stopped it. But you'll eventually learn through practice. I suggest no spaces, and that just makes it to where you can have it exactly as is. And you can, when I say no spaces, I mean in the parameter name, because you can even have a space here. It doesn't understand that. If you did, your parameter you could have 10 spaces. Let's say your parameter did have repo space 1. When there is a space in a parameter, you have to, well, it already fixed it for me. I was going to say it puts the hashtag or # and then quotes it. That's telling it to reference. It looks just like a query because in that world, it's the no real difference, except this query is one result, just one thing. Same here. So, and for my example 1, I made repo, prod. This is where it's done, where I have both of them, and I can freely switch repo, branch. I could change this to be smarter with data, and I could change this to test, and they still work. But now let's go more advanced. Let's say, what if I made the mistake, or you have a lot of combinations? What if I made the mistake where I left it on Chris 1614 and branch test, or that would give a result, but different data? There is a lot of scenarios where you might have the same, let's say this was the warehouse and this was the database. You could have dev test prod in the same warehouse, even though it's actually different data than the other warehouse dev test prod. And if you make the mistake of not changing both, they get a little messed up, or you don't realize it. And now all your queries are referencing the data without you realizing it. So in a better example, you could make a mapping. You could make a mapping that kind of says, this is a little more advanced, and I'll admit AI helped with it, but I effectively just made a little table myself, and I put it in GitHub or wherever you would want it, where I said, I want to be able to choose BSWA DAG, and it does both. Choose the next one, and it does both. And it could be an unlimited scenarios, but I only want one choice, and then I don't accidentally mess it up. And then what that does is this little function, which I will show it to you. It's basically going to say, I want you to select a row from this mapping where when I choose the environment, because I made a parameter, give me the repo. So based on the environment I choose in the parameter, give me the mapped repo here, and it will be one output. You don't need to know what that is, because the point is take this file, use the function. That's kind of what I'm going for with this, where this already has an answer, because in my parameter setup, I put in, so I made a new parameter and I added each one. I added just the unique one, to then tell these two functions to auto change based on that. So then I can go, I want, prod, and now this will say, be smarter with data. This will say prod, and now I don't have to worry that these automatically corrected themselves. And you could apply that to all your queries. That will really unlock you for if you have 100 queries and maybe you want to go from just to switch your source often without a massive manual work, or 2 files, and then you got to remember which ones you changed. So that's unlocking parameters.
Need to feel like if there's a bunch of tables that want to have the same trend, like the last 12 months of data with the number of months in the parameter. And so all the trends have the same amount, like same number of months.
Yep.
To bring in. So you don't have to go through each query.
That's a great idea. Because it's really like, especially with AI today, you really can say, hey, I'm trying to get a repeatable thing in Power Query. I don't know if that's a function. I don't know if that's a parameter. That's okay. That's where this AI can really help on that. Before I go there, because you mentioned that, I might as well show it to you. Is it? Wait. Filtering. Sometimes you are trying to, a lot of times, you're trying to edit queries and your data is so big, you almost dread editing it. Okay, that happens often. A lot of times I would suggest, I did not come up with this idea till last night. And it was crazy. I haven't thought about this before, but I've always went in and I'm like, okay, I want to just filter. Don't look at that. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look. Okay. I would normally suggest, hey, when you have a query that has 50 steps and you hate working on it, but you know the change. You don't need to see the specific data. That happens all the time as your model gets older or whatever. I would say to keep the rows, keep top 10 rows or top 100 rows at the very top. Add it there, so that way every follow-up step is fast, and do that often, because that will make all your queries load faster. Now, you still have to take it away before you hit refresh, sure, or before you hit close apply. That was going to be my instruction, that this will really help your development time. But then I thought, well, wait a minute, why couldn't I do this with a function or a parameter? And that is what I'm about to show you. So I realized that why couldn't I make a quick parameter that's just true, false? Because you could put this in every query where you just put it at the top and leave it on false to where it doesn't filter anything. But if I turn that filter, it's a very simple if filter, which, because it's just true, false, it knows true or false. So if filter's true, then do the exact same table, which is the same table first end. And you could put that on every query with no effect on performance. But now in one quick little filter of switching this to false, or well, I was supposed to be false in the this. 909, it could be a billion rows. Who knows? I could switch this to true and boom. Now it's only 50 rows for all my tables because that makes it much easier to develop. And now you don't have to maybe change the top thing. But then as I wrote this demo out, I'm like, well, wait a minute, the 50 number could be changed because that could be another parameter. Because anything that's repeatable can be its own parameter. So I'm like, well, why couldn't I just make, instead of this 50, which was a set number that I did based on my first example, why couldn't I just make that its own parameter? So where now it's first do the filter based on this, and now I can freely change the number. Well, I do need the first 5,000 rows. And now it will instantly, there it is. Same exact function, except I switch this to say read from this parameter. And that's where another reason parameters can really unlock you. But also with this little if statement, it doesn't hurt anything. Doesn't hurt your performance. And this now can make it to where in one quick thing, you've changed your whole environment and you've made being able to make a change so much faster, potentially, if your data is big. And I'm not going to say this 100%, but I'm fairly sure this top rows also has no issue with query folding. So you could do that and hit all your SQL tables and it won't have an issue. All right, now, yes.
There's a question online. Can you use this parameter with several Excel spreadsheets that are appended to one table for a visual, but only one Excel spreadsheet is updated on a weekly basis where the parameter is only loading that Excel file that is changed? Currently, the append table seems to load and evaluate all the Excel sheets. It's in the chat.
Yeah. I want to say, so I don't know if you would need a parameter for that, especially if it's older data. You could you can right click on some of these queries where you say don't include in refresh. So let's pretend you have, there's a mix answer here because it could be incremental. They have incremental in a refresh you could do through Power Query that looks at based on a column or based on what you say should change, and only include the new rows. Or if you have historical data, you could say enable, or you wouldn't turn off enable load. You would right click and hit include and refresh, where now it's just always going to be the last load that you had. That's another option you could do. I'd have to see it. If whoever's asked that, it would be hard. Parameters, but that's the thing, is you can get very creative with how you use parameters. Anything that you're like, I use this step in 10 query or even one query. I don't want to have to go into advanced editor and change it. I'd rather just click a drop down. And this might be true, false, or a 5,000, but like this is just a drop down. And it changes every query that it uses it. And sure, that initial setup, like if you already have a model, might be a pain to set up, but then you'll be so thankful you did it afterwards. And in parameter setup, you can do a description. You can add other things just so future you will be happy. Yeah, so that's parameters. I'm going to quickly go through the change types because I want to get to the other stuff. The change types is just, I would set all your types. Don't let anything ever be let's start with this, other queries. Don't look at these folders. Yeah, don't ever let this already came with the type. I'll add a custom column. Add custom column. A lot of sources come in without setting your types, where it can be a text, a number, anything. For the safety of your downline steps, it's always best to set your types. And I would do it as high as possible, meaning as high as in the steps as possible, and as many steps as possible, like as many columns as you can. There is one scenario where I don't know if you've ever, I will just say it out loud in case you come across it, but let's say you have a column that is a date, and then you have a column that is a date time. You cannot freely change both of those to just date. You will get an error on that date time. I'm trying to see if I have an example to show that. I don't. But if you ever come across that, you can do another change type and it will ask. So you change it to date time, and then you do the next change type, and it'll ask if you want to replace the current or add a new one, because it knows that it needs to do that. That's hard to put into words until you come across it. But when it comes to date and date time, it's a little bit different on the change type. Okay, on to more. Set all your types, catch early. It's better for DAX compatibility. It's better for everything, especially when you're pivoting or doing aggregations in Power Query. Okay, another just best practice is in this view section right here. Let's say you have some very big tables, or you just aren't sure where an error is. You can start to hit these tools up here, which will tell you, okay, are all these unique? Are they distinct? Not column prompt. And column quality will help to tell you if there's any error columns in it. So if I had a wider table, which I'll go with this one, and we'll delete these steps. You can kind of get an idea of all your columns through here to see which ones are unique, which ones, and how many unique there are, distinct there are, and then if they're valid, if they're empty, because that's a big one to know. And it can give you a real quick overview of the quality of your data. Then I would highly suggest, most of us have tables that are more than 1,000 rows. At this bottom left, its column profiling is typically always defaulted to the top 1,000 rows. You can switch this here by clicking on it and switching it to entire data set. That is it shows no errors. You refresh it, it keeps saying you have errors. This will help with that, to help track what it is. There's other stuff in here, column profile, but the column quality and column distribution is my more favorite ones to use as a default, if anything, just to, break down your columns. Okay. No, this isn't the duplicate one I really wanted to get into. All right, so duplicates versus references. So there is a difference between, and a very clear difference. I'm going to take these away. Delete. Where's my all way? Oh. I'm done. I won't save this at the end. How about that? Okay. Don't look at these folders. It gets fun, I promise. Okay. There is a clear difference between duplicating a query and referencing a query. I would always suggest that if you can reference a query, it is better, because if you don't need to change the steps that happened in that core query. In fact, if you have a lot of queries where you are duplicating them over and over and then making small little changes, think about how much that is if you have to make one edit on this first step, the remove columns, you got to go through 10 queries to do the exact same thing, which is so hard to remember. So when I say to try to remove your best columns in the beginning, and you do all your change types, if you ever have to now use that query in 2 different ways, before you get to the split off, I would turn off this enable load and now just reference it.
Yeah.
So if you ever, and then again, so I'll repeat that. If you ever have a query that you break off at some point, you copy it and then, but it's the same for the first 10 steps. And then you copy it no matter how many times and then go from there, break it off at that 10 steps, disable load, and then just change all of those to a reference. And it's, let's say you've already done all this and you're like, well, how do I change it to a reference if it's already been there? It's very simple to do. So I will show that advanced side right now. Like, hey, I actually love these steps. I just want to reference it from here. And let's say, sure, I added the change type here, but this one doesn't have it. I'm just doing random stuff. I go into advanced editor. So you don't need, if you think about it, I don't need the promoted, or actually I stopped it at what? Oh, I look at this base. Okay, removed columns. So I go here. I'm like, remove columns is right here. So I can just go let, and I remove literally the source or the remove columns, every step before. And this is just how to retrofit it to where then you could go base and then comma, and then it already, and then remember, because every little step references the previous one. Let's say I did this, I'm going to get an error because like, I don't know where this is looking for remove columns. It's not there. So you could do it here, or because I'm in advanced editor, just switch to source. Now, as you know, I almost wish Power Query would, because it's a little confusing. When you go into advanced editor, you often see the hashtag and quotation marks. That's only there because there are spaces there. If none of these steps have spaces, you would never need this. So I don't need it for source. So whether it's easier, you could add it. It doesn't matter. I just say that if you're ever like, I don't know why it's saying it's not referenced. If it has spaces, that's the only reason it has the pound sign and quotation marks. So when you're retrofitting for source, you don't need it because it's one word. But now every follow-up step is just referencing this, and it will go. And in fact, this is where I put either base queries. I add a new folder. I like base queries. And then I might even categorize the base queries, and I put it in there. Because then I know that, okay, what's this source? Okay, it's referencing this, and this could reference, and they could all diverge from there. And then, because I have this as a base, I could add a table buffer here. If it's doing a source that's like, this is slow, and you don't care, and query folding isn't a thing, you could add a table buffer at the end of this to where now it's only loading this reference once. Because normally a reference will load it each time. Just like duplicate, it's really no difference for performance there. It does the same steps, but it's just easier for manageability to reference versus duplicate. But if you did add a table buffer, it puts it into memory. And that kind of just depends on, if you have a slow computer, that would suck. You know, sometimes that's, you know what, I'm not even going to, I could be wrong there because I could. There are scenarios where it helps. There are scenarios where it hurts. And I'll go from that. Yeah. But all to say, the moment you diverge, go one step back, make that a helper query, because that is so much easier. Just one, you're not loading all these extra queries, or you're not loading that base query just to break it off. You're not having to update it 15 different ways, or 15 times for every query. And it's much easier to manage. So now when you update the first one, if you ever need to, you only update it once. It'll just go down line. But that's also where removing other columns, change.
If you don't put that buffer in, you know, if you do the reference and you don't do the buffer, does it still refresh the whole thing every time?
I'm fairly sure, yes.
I didn't know that.
I didn't, I will admit, right, but it was before this meeting that I really looked into table buffer, and I at least read one article where it does say that's where it would help, because it does refresh it every time.
That's not good.
I won't quote myself on that. Yeah. But when I learned that, and I will say last night, I literally tried this. So I have, I make a tool that will download all your reports and models, break them out, and then help you see where you visualize stuff across all your workspaces. I include a template model for that for everyone. It works for everyone. It's global. It's on GitHub. It'll be the same thing. It has 150 stars. It's my proudest achievement for the Power BI world. But the point is so I have 400 reports and like 300 models. I was trying my refresh on. It took 6 minutes and 44 seconds when I first learned about this table buffer. I can't guarantee it's because of the table buffer because I only did one test. It could be, who knows? But it did cut it down to 3 minutes and 20 seconds, making me think that yes, the buffer really did. Yeah. Because if you looked in the Power Query of that model, I have a lot of base queries. And you're going to see why, because this is where you can make it. So we're going to go to duplicates. This is a madness if you've ever dealt it. So I will be very clear that Power BI desktop is case insensitive by default. So what does that mean? It means that in the Power BI relationship world, everything, product with a capital P equals product, all lower equals all caps product. Trailing spaces are ignored, but leading spaces, so spaces at the very end of a word, if you just add it and it's nothing, it will remove them for you or ignores them. They'll be there, but it won't be considered. Leading spaces before are considered. But Power Query is much more, everything is unique. And why does that matter? That matters because if you're making a dimension table, which we might often in a star schema, or you don't have the source data to affect like you can't just pull in a dimension, but I need a separate table that's all my categories of food. Actually, what did I use? Don't look. There's a lot of duplicate areas. Okay. So
Isn't SQL Server, all three of those would be considered the same thing?
I actually thought SQL Server was unique. I could be wrong. I could be like case sensitive, all that stuff. I could be wrong.
Probably depends on.
Yeah.
I think it probably depends on the table and how they set up.
That could also be, yeah. It could be a setting like you choose, but in Power Query, you can't change this. So Power Query is case sensitive. It's unique. I'm going to turn off this view just to keep this. So I have all these, however you say it. I say biopic. People say biopic. I'm not going to get into that argument during this meeting. Okay. I'm using it phonetically, biopic. Okay. So these are all movies based on true. And don't look at this real quick. 1 second. I'm going to add this custom column, which this took me longer than you think to try to randomize the casing of rows in Power Query. I don't know what any of this means. Just know that. Okay. Actually, here, boom, boom. I will give you tips how to work with AI on this as well, because sometimes AI, I will help if we get to at the end of the call and help AI. Like if you don't know enough what it gave you, little things to look for on, especially with functions or going straight into advanced editor when it's a lot. All to say, this is a random letter or random column that kind of took this title, which are repeated, and then, I don't know, using a random combination, it made them different to where the lowercase is C and the R is, these two are a little bit different, just so I could demonstrate it. Now, if this was the title, I'm going to remove this. And hold on 1 second. I'm going to close this, not now. I'm going to show you, I'm going to set up a relationship discard. So we have a relationship. Okay, I'm going to set one up. I'm going to say fact and dimension. And I'm going to set it up on title. Oh, this is already the... Is there another biopics? Yep, there is. Okay. Set it up on... Wait. My apologies. Biopics, remove duplicates. I need it to be, in this case, I need it to be unique. That one has the no case sensitive, or like, I already know that's unique when I do that on the base. That's why I had to force a fake one. So we have the fact table. Yeah. So sorry. Edit query. Duplicate, take this step out. Okay, let's try this one more time. Topics is title and biopics 2 title. Okay, one to many, or it auto figures that out. We have a relationship. It's good to go. It works. If now I add my custom column back, which this was I'm going to pretend, I'm going to do my custom column. This is what happens. I'm trying to demonstrate the flaw, especially if it's based on a refresh. There we go. Okay. So it's there. You don't I know this is an extreme case of every possible casing, but when I hit remove duplicates, it doesn't remove. My point is it, and I'm going to change this to title.
You'd be surprised how that's not an outlier. A lot of us are always cleaning data like this.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be a problem.
So title. Now, when it refreshes, this is the dimension. So it's going to, I'll show you what it does. You've removed duplicates. It'll never have an issue. It took out. Why did it take out the relationship? It was called the same, wasn't it? Okay. It would have failed. If it didn't take out the relationship, maybe because I deleted the column, it would have said you have duplicates where it's a one to many. So it fails the entire refresh because of that. That's just the demonstration of it, where you can clearly see a dangerous method, a dangerous method, a dangerous method. So I'm going to show you one way to fix it. But you know what? I'm going to then show you the next flaw. Let's say you do want remove duplicates, okay? But you need it in a certain order. You needed the duplicates to be by year, or what did I sort it by? By year release and then title. Sure. So this is not a flaw, but remember I said Power Query is lazy. Because Power Query is lazy, it is put into memory this layout, even though I've sorted the rows. I want you to notice it's lowercase a, lowercase d. So you would think this is what people will do. They'll remove duplicate, they'll sort it by a date, let's say, then remove duplicates because I want the most recent one to be unique. But lowercase, if you hit remove duplicates, it doesn't do that. And that's because it keeps the first one, no matter what. I could hit refresh preview. And that is because it has kept the original structure from that lazy thought, we'll call it. Because I went mad when I first discovered this. I didn't understand why it was happening. So I'm going to show you both ways to get rid of this. First, I'm going to go over retain casing. So this is the way I've always liked it. So we're going to go this, and I'm going to tell you why. I told you that Power BI ignores casing or doesn't care about it, but that doesn't mean I don't. So I don't want to, I could trim this and clean it and make it proper, but my fact table might not be that. And sure, the relationship will still work, but it looks weird It looks very weird. It like picks one. It's a weird behavior. So what I always tell people to do is instead of just hitting remove or instead of cleaning that column, duplicate it. This is what I always do. So I duplicate it. I then trim it because I need both the cleaning and bleeding and whatever. You get what I'm saying? This says clean text because I don't know a quick way of right clicking it. So what I do is I right click on, and again, this is all in the duplicated column. I then transform it. I hit clean and I switch this word to proper. Because what proper does, so if you hit clean, I don't even know what clean does, to be honest. But I've had such a habit of hitting clean, and then I switch this to proper, and proper makes every first letter a capital, and it makes the casing
Proper case.
Yeah. But I'm saying the reason I pick clean is because there is no proper option as a low code. So what I do is I just, out of habit, I pick clean and then I switch it to proper. And then I remove duplicates on that because that forces this to keep the same casing that I liked, that whatever the fact or dimension is, but it does remove the duplicates here. And then I remove that column. This will 100% guarantee your duplicates are removed while keeping the original look of it or casing without it randomly picking the casing it chooses for the fact and dimension. Yes, so I literally create a copy of that column. I duplicated it because I want this casing, but I just want it unique. And I already have the order that I want, let's pretend. Or I don't even know that there's that much of a difference. So I don't care about order yet. I'm about to show order. So I copy it, I trim that copy, I proper that copy. I remove the duplicates on the copy, and then I just remove that column. Because then this is unique with the casing that I needed.
But it didn't change that column to be the proper case and be true.
Because I don't want that. This is the
This
case.
is the original. Still makes
Yes, but the fact table will. You're right. But I've had a scenario where if I clean that, the fact table will have those cases. And that's a many. It can be duplicates. So I need the unique.
So you either clean them all or you.
Yeah. So this is because I didn't want to clean every fact table to apply. I just wanted to get the unique. And because of what Power BI ignores or doesn't ignore, this keeps it unique while keeping the casing the same between the fact table. That's a good call out though. Because when I have done this, I've then realized, well, the fact table is showing blanks or it just doesn't line up. This ensures that happens. Okay. Another duplicate one. Let's say I want to retain the sort. It's real simple. So a lot of online, I guarantee you, they're going to say table buffer. The reason I don't suggest that is because that will break query folding. And because I didn't know about it before I first did my way, I add an index. If you add an index, that is another way that doesn't break query folding for the people that care about that. And it ensures that I stay. See, that's the capital. I stay. It stays the same way. If I take that away, it won't be capital. Hold on. Refresh preview. Yeah, I'm sorry. It was supposed to be lowercase. It went to uppercase. If I add an index,
So you have to sort it and then
sort first, add the index, which then whatever that, it doesn't break the query folding, but it tells the system you have to, because an index forces the memory to reload. And now it kept it there. Yeah. Actually, hold on. did that actually, you know, I have so much cache data there. Add an index, it will solve it every time. And then, but now let's do the last one, which is just, it's an extra step. If you want casing and sort, which I use surprisingly a lot of times, especially in that Power Query with my tool, you'd be surprised on how many people have different workspaces, spaces, or they have, in my case for this, because I was trying to solve a scenario where I don't know what your environment is, I have to solve everybody's environment. So I basically had to have a sorted way and to keep your casing. And I eventually used this for the last 3 years and it works well. So I do the sort, do the index, then I do that duplicate, then trim, then clean, remove duplicates, remove columns. I'll show one more advanced way after this. 112. Oh my God, I gotta go quick. Error handling. Oh, this is the one you guys are gonna want. Okay. So how do you solve this is what I had to solve in my last, or when I was developing my tool. How do I solve when I don't know if you're going to have reports or models or data flows, specifically data flows? I had data flows, but I wanted to make my tool universal. So I don't know if you'll have the columns. So I would have PowerShell make a file, but it would have no columns if you didn't have, but how do I solve that? So where is it? Where is it? Is it a folder within a folder? Safety. Okay. Yeah. Product refresh. Okay. So because I know this is taking longer than I want. Okay. Real simple. All this does is gives a way of saying, okay, here's my source. Here's what it is. You have the source, but you don't know what columns are going to be there. You promote the headers or whatever, maybe you didn't need to. Then this just lists out, just straight up, this is all it is. What columns do I need? I have 100 steps. Could be 100 columns, and it could be 20 columns, doesn't matter, no limit. This is what I have to have, okay? I then take this, and this is a simple formula that says, what columns do I actually have? Then it does the math of what am I missing. Now let's pretend I remove this, and let's pretend the source didn't have it. It's going to call out that I'm missing one column. Then this adds the missing columns right there. It's blank, but it adds it, which means no step will fail afterwards. And then what this does is, let's say you had extra columns. This filters it to only the list that I called out and expected. So expected, actual, this filters it. And this is another way of calling out that Power Query does not need you to say, well, this is promoted headers. Expected columns didn't reference this. It doesn't need Power Query every single step. And I'm going to get it. I know I only have 15 minutes, but every single step in Power Query is its own step. It's like a variable. You could, right here, I could say, you know what? I want to, if I put change type right here, I could say ignore all this and just do it on the source. Just by saying reference whatever data was there in the source. You could make, and I will show this later, that you don't always need extra queries, because I will show a way to where I made a helper table, but I didn't make it as a helper query. I literally just put it in the same query and just referenced that. Because again, Power Query, you can think of it like DAX. Every little row is a variable. Every little row is a CTE in QuickBase. It is. So whatever data is as of that point, you can recall, you can change. And on your last step, I don't know if I've messed with Advanced Editor before, and I've made it call, like the last step was calling the wrong thing, and I didn't understand why my change wasn't showing. That's because you get to tell it what it references. And there's very creative ways to approach that because of that. But so all to say, take this function because I'm like, it's just a little list of what columns do I need, the actual columns, and then a special little missing columns. And again, it doesn't care what promoted headers is yet, because what this will do, this adds it paired with promoted headers. You're going to see promoted. Oh, well, I added remove columns. So if I didn't have removed columns, it's basing it on now go back to promoted headers with this new list. That's because they don't need to be in order. So now this, I want to be clear with this. This will never let this source fail. Assuming I have follow-up steps, it will finish them with nulls. You might have a thing where you needed something, but let's pretend you didn't. This is very few refresh proof, except it doesn't. If
Make it up.
it will, well, it will be that table will be blank, or that column. So it doesn't change that your data might need help. But let's say you have something where, especially for SharePoint, if you have people that can, if you're connecting to a SharePoint file and people rename a column or add new ones, remove other columns will usually help with add new ones, but renaming a column, yes, it will blank out the data, but it won't refresh the 50 other tables you might have pulling from it, or it won't fail it. And then if you get more creative, and this I didn't discover till last night, let's pretend you actually didn't even need, or you don't even know if the source will be there. So this still has my actual columns, my missing columns, my expected, my missing, and then make sure it's only those. I'm sorry, add any missing, then filter it down to just exactly what I called out. And the reason that's safe is because I do care about missing columns, but I also don't want extra columns, just to be safe. In my scenario of this protection, I care about what's missing, but then I want you to filter it down to only what I called out, because every step, for no matter what the step is, it won't fail. But for the source, I didn't discover this till yesterday, and now I want to use it. So this puts in the expected. The first step is that same expected columns. It doesn't even have a source yet because I had to put it up, because then this is hard to see, and let's see if I can see it in here. It's called try. It's actually the same exact steps as this. So I just went here, I made my source here. I always have to start here because I needed the columns. So then I took this, I went into Advanced Editor, copied it all. And then this little function is called try. It's ugly when it's, look right here. And I basically said, so it says try, and that same steps, try all these steps, which for my case was just the source and the promoted headers. Otherwise, just take a column, just take my expected columns. So if you don't see the source, then just make a column of this, columns of this, which then no step will fail. And you could make this 100 steps. It could be your entire, like, I don't know if that will be there. And if it's not there, then just go, if I went, how do I say, you know what? That's, you know what? Yeah, let's do that. Edit. It's anonymous. Sure. It's going to be like, I can't find that. So it couldn't find it. So it just gave me the 5 columns I've asked for in the beginning. Blank, but I don't care because no step will fail after that. For this case, there's not always a great case for that, but where the source doesn't matter. But let's say you want, it's like, it's a protection. And then yes, you might need checks to make sure, did I just let blank data? But there's a lot of times where it's like, that caused the refresh to fail. That sucks. Like that little thing caused the whole model to fail when that wouldn't have mattered if it was all
Like
real.
something didn't show up sometime or something.
Yeah. I got 9 minutes. I know I'm going. Yeah.
Seriously, right?
So the quick merge stuff, if you're used to SQL and have never seen merges in Power BI or Power Query, it is in SQL, you have to like call out every column that you need to merge with, every column you need to append with, and like make them work. And in Power BI, it's nothing like that. It's so much simpler because I can just say, okay, I want to merge on the year. Right here, I'm going to go here. I'm going to hit merge. I'm going to go year. And I'm going to go daily show guess again. And I'm in which one? Column by example. Source. Column safety. And doesn't matter because then you get to choose, I only want this column. I only want this column, you know. And if you're used to this if you're in Power BI. If you then go to SQL, it's almost dumb. You feel like it's dumb. You didn't know this was a feature until you talk to someone who grew up with SQL and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe you don't have to do any of that. And when you append columns, if you're not used to it, or you're calling in to just learn about a Power Query, and you came from SQL, it doesn't matter what the other table has for columns. If they had extra, they'll just add to the right. I don't know if you want that, but you never have to call out columns. The rest is all just SQL. Okay, functions. This is where you really got to have a use case for it, but I will quickly show where it's useful, or sometimes. This didn't come to me till last night as I was making this demo. I'm like, why have I been telling everyone to duplicate a column, trim it, clean it, or proper it, and then remove duplicates? Why? I'm about to update every place I do that with just this function that does the exact same thing. So all I did is I literally gave it to AI and say, how can I make my 3 steps a function to apply to any column? That's how I asked it. I said, okay, here's my whole query. I always duplicate, I trim, I proper it, and then I remove. I don't remove. That's it. Those 3. How do I apply that universally? So it gave me, and all it is it gives you the whole thing, and you open a blank query, put it into Advanced Editor and hit done, and it will look like a little function symbol. Then I get my sort. I've done my, oh, I didn't index Chris, you animal. I add my index. Okay, it's sorted. Now I'm ready to, I'm going to even take this out. I'm ready to do what I normally do. So I can just be on what a first name, sure. And I can hit invoke function. Sure. And I can name it whatever I want. Sure, name. And clean name. And now it already knows because I chose the column. If you had chosen anything else, it would let you change it. Name 2. And it will have applied both because this function does clean, or sorry, if it's first it handles nulls because that is a problem in some functions. So just if it's null, stay null. Otherwise, trim or proper the trimmed text. Trim it, then proper it. Same thing, all in one. Now I still have to, sure, remove the duplicates and remove columns, but think about something you repeat 7 steps in a row. That you can just kind of ask AI, say, why not just use a function for it? And it does that, you know. The other one was something I actually do. In my tool, I would download files and put them in a specific name style. Well, Windows can't handle certain name styles. Like it can't have brackets in your file names, but workspaces can. So I would use the rest. This is just a real use case. I would get an Excel output of all your workspaces as they're named. They're truly named. But then when I download the file, I would name it workspace report name. But they would be different, so there wouldn't be a match. So this is one where I actually had to clean both tables to make them match. So all this does is it basically says, anytime you see a bracket, switch it with a parentheses. Anytime you see It was just another use case where I need to apply this to a bunch of columns and I don't want a million steps. And this added custom, and I added a purpose, like a bunch of random symbols just to make sure it worked. Because you could put all these in a workspace name as a background, and then I invoked it to clean it up. And I use that everywhere. But like any functions you can kind of think about to say, what do I do often? Same for parameters, but in a different way. I need to apply a bunch of steps to a list, a file, rows, anything. That. And then I will give the last one.
Real quick, how
Yeah.
do you create the function?
So I will ask the same thing. 1 second. 1 second. Go before the time.
You're fine.
Duplicates with casing. No, that's the flaw. I literally just
You just created it.
so in reality, you go and you create a blank query or maybe copy a different query, doesn't matter, and then go into advanced editor and paste it all. If you knew it by and could naturally write it, good for you. Because I can't, but I can do this.
Right.
Can I get a function to apply the trim and proper for a column? Yeah. Instead of applying the steps. Let's see what it does. I did on ChatGPT last night. Let's see. Well, it's not always perfect. No. I've done stuff I've never thought I would even try because of that. So I'm just going to, this is how I would start. I'd go into new or blank query, or I would have copied one. And then I hit Control A, Control V.
Just get rid of it.
And then sometimes that's all it is.
So the blank query recognizes that it's a function.
Because there's no source or stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
I need, so, but that didn't work. And I could, whatever it's called, diagnose it, or I could just say I need it as a function with or not as steps. Yes. Thank you.
Cool. What was the difference?
I don't know. I don't care. That's kind of the niceness. And like, I'm not going to care. I'm just going to, because it didn't work right away, as lazy as that is. But I also knew a little bit, like it gave it, when it gives you an equals, it thinks you're in, that's what was going to be one of my tips. If it's giving you an equals, it's trying to think you're maybe in the formula bar, versus if it gives you a name plus equals, it thinks you're an advanced editor. So, but now I don't know if this works. Okay. It has a table. So now let's try. Then you right click, or you can hit add column, invoke function, query one. Should have picked the same table, but that's fine. What table am I in? I don't even know why that's optional. You know what? I'm gonna hit OK and see what happens now.
Good try.
So this is picking it from a different, yeah. You'd get there.
Yeah, I just meant how to.
Just start it, yeah. And that did work. So I went in there and just went advanced, and it instantly knew.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The last thing that I wanted to go over. Oh, data intelligence, or date intelligence. Don't make a DAX table through DAX. Do it in either have it from a source, or there's two ways to do it here. You could, I entirely asked AI. I just said, I need a date table for a demo. And this is a pretty good date table. Dates, year. It gave me a start date and end date that I could choose. But what if I had a fact table that I wanted to read this from? So then I said, how about I do it from a fact table? And I got to just list it gave me another way where I just change what column or what table and column to reference it from, to take the max and the min, so there's no dates that go outside the boundary of your data. Now that gets a little complicated if you have 100 fact tables, or a waste of performance. But I thought it was cool to do that. And it just looked at this fact and I'm like, okay, this is the date. So just look at those, see if it works. And then finally, this is where you get, where's my queries within a queries? Inception. It's not there. Okay. My inception is, remember, steps don't matter. So, or the order of steps. So let's pretend that, I'm gonna take this away. No, I'll do it here. Okay. Let's pretend I have this Thanksgiving dinner and I started with it. Okay. I have this Thanksgiving dinner and I have another table, or maybe the same table, where I started with it. I filtered it down. I wanted to get to whenever there's a turkey or this is the stuffing. I don't want this. Sometimes I don't want this as a temp query. Like maybe it's cleaner just to all be in the same one. And you can easily do that and reference it for a merge back, because this is what I was ultimately going to do. I was going to merge it. I'm like, okay, I want turkey, and I went into temp query and I did this, and sure, it has the matches. And then I do standard stuffing. That's all I wanted. I could leave it like that. And there are cases to do that, or because I don't really care about, I don't need the steps to align. I could also go in here, just copy this, the whole set. Then I go into this advanced editor and I could just go after the let, I could go the same thing it calls for, temp query equals, and I put the entire steps. Boom. Now, when I delete this, it won't say it's being used, because if there's the same named query inside of a query, it won't look outside. That's how I will typically build them. If I know I don't really want this, this is the easy way to quickly get the steps, because it's kind of hard to, I would never write all those. I would copy a query, I need this mapping and I need it unique. So I'll build it here. I'll literally copy all of them and just add it. You could add 100 of those if you wanted to, because that's another thing. Every step could be an entire 500 tables of steps, because they don't need to be, it looks like that, but people don't realize that you don't need that. It could be just all right here. This is every step. And I could never call it. I could call it. I could append it. You could do whatever you want. Now it gets, the trickier part is that when I hit merge, I'm not going to see, if I now did merge, I'm not going to see temp query in here, because that's
better.
Well, because that's an advanced thing, it's not going to let you do that. Because that's where I said the same thing. You don't need, sometimes like just doing what you wanted to do, or how do I say that? I could take this and I merge this, but I actually wanted to merge off promoted headers. I could just switch this to promoted headers, and now it's going to merge. It won't let you do that in the merge style, but let's say you just want to reference an earlier step, merge it with anything else to get the structure, and then just switch out the little step it's calling for, or query. I gotta have the same column name. It's gonna fail if I do this, but it will fail because it won't find country in promoted headers. But I could do respondent ID. Let's try that. I'm just calling it out. And now it works. And sure, there won't be any match in whatever I merge, but like you can take what you already have and recall it. Just like a CTE in SQL, or over and over.
So does it take up all the extra memory? I mean, what's it doing? You know what I'm saying? Like. how's
it's
overhead
still
on
the
this
same.
thing?
There's no difference. So it depends on
You do it
yours.
two separate or in the temp in the middle like that.
Well, if I'm going to use it, if I'm going to use it in more than one query, I'm probably going to have it as a,
Already.
like a base query to reference. It's more if I like it like this is, I have my queries are, I already have too many queries. Okay. That's one of the reasons I'll use it. I only need this for this small use case, and I don't want it to be, I want it to be easily referenced to where if someone looked at this query, they would see everything that happens. That's a great use for it. Or
You just want to
it
merge
can
some data.
prevent, yeah, or it can prevent needing helper queries if you just merge back in the same step. That's a little more,
It kind of is
Yeah.
a helper query
Yeah.
in a way, right?
it is, yeah. Except you don't need it as a dedicated.
I get you. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a one-time shot.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
You get creative with
Do
it.
you use that a lot?
I do because of my, I can show you what the other one looks like. Don't look at mine.
I mean, I think you do have more queries than we.
So at this place, I don't actually use a lot of Power Query. It's all upstream because in Snowflake, but remember, I
Oh,
learned from there.
gotcha.
So, and this, I needed this universal for everyone. So this is where I've heavily worked on like the tricks. What I'm about to open. So this is the final output of our, that tool that I have make where it breaks out every workspace, every report, where you use everything. And you can even get an overview, like, hey, where is this visual sit on the page? And this will work for, I don't want to get, I had a meeting about this back in February, but it's called Impact IQ. But the point is, this is all the tables I show you. But if you go into edit, I have spent a lot of time organizing, but imagine if you came in here and you saw all these queries.
How did you pull all that data? Is that? Because I've been trying to do it with PowerShell.
This, so the core of this is PowerShell. So it uses PowerShell with the REST API to get first all the data
So
from.
you did this and you pulled all the workspaces and all that stuff.
Yes, but then PowerShell to download your reports and
Yeah,
models.
yeah.
But then it uses Tabular Editor and PBI tools to extract the metadata.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then it auto opens this model to refresh.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's because everybody that has a core connected model, but like if you can see, I have a lot of base queries.
This way you can probably just jump into a place and get a big overview.
100, the first day I started QuickBase,
probably
I
put
ran
all that
this.
stuff
It
out
will
there.
download every report, every model
You
I
run
have
all your
access to.
PowerShell and you
Yep.
get all the data.
It's one click. Be smarter with data.com. Be smarter with data. AI made this website. Looks nice, doesn't it? I sure as hell didn't do it, but this is one click. So, I have a local version, a Semantic Link Labs version, so it's all cloud, and and a service principal, and then tenant I'll release soon. Tenant admin will, if you don't have access and you're the tenant admin, it will give you access to the workspace because you don't need admin access to get the metadata.
Right.
You cannot download a report or the model if you're not in the workspace. So this temporarily gives the tenant admin all the access for any workspace they don't have, then removes them right after it downloads all the stuff. This is just one click. Download it. If you click this, well, I might as well show if you guys are sitting here. Actually, I like this one. Is there any other questions? So this is just open, run. This will auto download the latest tabular editor and the latest PBI tools and the latest repo because I update this constantly. It will then ask you what you'll see. It'll ask you, so someone else helped out. It works on all cloud, public, GCC, high CC environments. Someone else did that because I can't test it. So it'll first ask you the environment. Most people are public, so it'll expire in 2 minutes. It'll then instantly ask you to log in. Oh, this is my environment. And then it'll give you all the workspaces you want to run against, or just hit OK. Boom. Report minute.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. This is 3 years of
I was gonna say, this would
Yeah.
take me a lifetime to.
and everything outputs automatically to, and it doesn't need admin access. It's all based on your access. So C, Power BI backups, and everything will go report detail, environment detail, model detail. But this is the one where I can't guarantee you have some of this. So that's where this model was really important on how do I make it to where this will never fail refreshing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's.
But
why you-
report backup, oh, that's the wrong example, but it'll break out the workspaces, reports, and then, yeah, this is a backup solution too. It's a trick because I have to have them to break it out. Semantic Link Labs does not. But you need to, the report needs to be in PBIR, which is coming. Not guaranteed. And that's all I have.
Is that semantic, the database people?
Say again. Semantic Link Labs is the Fabric Python library.
No,
Okay, no. Yeah.
not the database from 35 years.
No, it's not. No. This is where it's extracting all the models with tabular editor through XMLA. And if it can't do XMLA, then it downloads the model itself rather than the thin report and then extracts the model with PBI tools. It's my pride and joy.
That's amazing.
So,
If I had time.
I mean, this, at that point,
This
it's
will be a
been,
job.
I've worked in a lot of nights. This will also take you right to that. Like, let's say, okay, this is where I filter or I use API reads in one workspace, 6 models, 8 reports, 14 pages, 14 visuals, and then you get to see where, but then more report, unused. What do I not use in my model? What do I not use in the report, the relationship? It's in there.
It's all in there?
Oh, yeah. It's all open source. Report level measures and then broken reports. What is a visual that guarantee is broken because you don't have it in your model or in the report level, and it'll take you right there. And then finally, measure lineage. Hey, if I change average, or let's pick one. If I change whatever this is, I don't know. If I change whatever measure I just clicked, or usually you pick one, it will affect these two. Or, hey, I'm going to change
So it shows you all your.
both dependent and upstream, downstream, upstream, and then everything that's built from it. Table lineage, your refresh schedules, like how often you refresh, then your refresh history, data flow, refresh history, DAX measures, all that.
I've
jazz.
built.
Yeah, that
I got
API.
that far,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. The magic or the most useful piece for everybody is the same reason why I built it in the first place, which was when you have a centralized model that a bunch of reports connect to, I don't know where we visualize everything.
I don't, yeah.
Yeah, this solves that
that too.
entirely.
Because you open it up, you're like, I can't see anything.
Or when you delete a measure or rename it, we would have 15 reports connected to a single model, and we would have like 300 pages where sometimes we would just click through every page as fast. We would change it in dev and see if anything broke, just to make sure.
That was the one thing, like, those all sounded so cool when they came out with that, but then it's like you try and use it.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you break something, holy crap.
Yeah.
It's nice to know that people are writing reports off of single data model or
I
single.
agree. I agree with that. Yeah. It's a good thing to have.
But it is hard to fix if something breaks,
Just past days.
because then you have to find out, and there's no easy way to find out where it's coming.
Well, I appreciate everybody's time.
Work.
That went longer than I was afraid. I wouldn't even get close to.
Yeah, I said
the time.
That's 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. So I appreciate it. Anybody else have any questions if you're still on?
So much. Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously.
Thank you all. Talk to you guys later.
You get to take 2 pizzas.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming. This is Morelli. He's the other co-chair of the group. We are looking